Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Stay friends. We have another exciting guest on our podcast. Her name is Hannah Goodman. She's with the Libertarian Party, and she's running for office. In fact, she told me there's two things she's running for. So she can talk about that in our podcast in a bit. So welcome to the podcast, Hannah.
Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. We're glad to have you. We love to do these interviews. So if you could please start by kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
Hi, I'm Hannah Goodman. Currently, I'm serving as the Chairwoman of the Libertarian Party of Colorado. I'm running for Congressional office for the U.S. House. I'm running on two ballots. There is a special election here in Congressional District 4 with Ken Buck vacating his seat, and they're looking to fill it until after the November election. So I'll be on that ballot, and I'm running against Trish Calabrese and Greg Lopez as the Republican and Democrat on the ticket. And I'm also on the ballot for November. We don't know yet who I'm going to be running against as far as Republican and Democrat because their primary ballots will be out in June.
Okay.
But I am on the ballot for sure for Congressional District 4, both in the special election and on the November ballot.
Okay, interesting. So if I may ask, if it's not too much of a heavy topic, what is the reason that that candidate is vacating his seat?
I'm not super sure why Ken Buck is deciding to vacate his seat about a year earlier than his term. I believe that it's probably some sort of internal political play. It must have something to do with Lauren Boebert switching districts from CD3 to CD4. He's an establishment Republican. She technically is, but likes to market herself as grassroots. So I think there's some sort of internal party struggle there, although I'm not super sure why. But my guess is it has something to do with that.
Okay, interesting. Whatever the case may be, it's a good thing that you're running for the office, and we trust your race is going to benefit you and the party in some way or another, or in many ways, perhaps. So I'm interested in your current position as well. You were talking about that you're chair. Can you please tell our audience what your roles and responsibilities are with that position?
Yes, so as Chairwoman of the Libertarian Party Colorado, I am the outward face of the party, and it's my job to get the Libertarian name out and about in the political landscape here in Colorado. I've actually done that with some great success. I was elected about a year ago, and my vision there is to radically change and reshape Colorado's political landscape. So by doing that, I organized and orchestrated a deal with the GOP here that if they'll run good, solid Liberty candidates, Libertarians wouldn't run in that race. The way that we do that is we offer them a pledge to sign. This actually is why Lauren Boebert switched districts and why I'm currently running in CD4. So it's gotten the press attention of all the press in Colorado onto Libertarian candidates because the press does not like the GOP. So any way they can undermine the GOP here in Colorado, the press will go in and do that. Well, the product of that is now libertarianism is very widely known here in Colorado with this strategy. So it's actually, some people it sounds like I would be selling out the Libertarian Party, but actually, in fact, I'm not. We have had a few really solid Liberty candidates sign the pledge, but most Republicans have rejected it, including Lauren Boebert. And in CD3, she only won by a very slim margin of 546 votes.
Wow.
She refused to sign the pledge, so we entered a candidate into that. His name is Jim Wiley, and she decided she didn't like those odds because we have 14,000 registered Libertarians there. So clearly I own the swing vote in CD3. So then she jumped into my district. She went essentially from the frying pan into the fire. And I have to take that as a challenge, so I'm running because I know she won't sign the pledge. And not only that, but she doesn't exactly represent the values of Congressional District 4.
Oh,
Whereas
sure.
I do. I'm a sixth-generation Coloradan. My family has been here since 1886 in the same
Wow.
county in which I reside. So
Wow.
I'm very well versed in the issues here in Congressional District 4.
So you got your roots there.
I do.
Wow, it sounds like it. So what does Lauren and the other Republicans, what in their mind, why are they objecting to a liberty pledge? A lot of Republicans want to make people think they're supporting liberty. So how are they, what are they doing that makes them not want to sign it?
Well, it really holds them. The pledge itself, I made sure I presented them with a pledge that it would be easy for them to sign. It's
Okay.
all the things which we agree on. I left off, abortion. I left off cannabis. I left off the controversial topics between libertarians and Republicans because I want them to sign. I want better Republicans in office here if libertarians can't get elected. Or we're still really working hard on that. We've got to build our brand before voters can trust us. And so, in a sense, I'm like, if we can find a really good liberty-leaning Republican like Thomas Massey, let's let him be in office and let's get out of the way and focus on local races. So the reason they won't sign it seems really bizarre to me, but essentially to me it's signaling that they don't actually uphold the values of liberty. If they did, they would be able to sign this pledge, which is so watered down that it would be easy for them to sign it. That's what was my goal, was what can we get from them that's liberty-leaning, but easy and we don't disagree on. That's what I handed them, and that's what the majority are receiving. And
Okay.
it's simply because they don't really uphold the values of liberty.
Sure, definitely. So what are the issues that you're bringing to this race? What are your campaign platform planks?
So as my family's been cattle ranching and farming in Colorado in this congressional district since 1886, Congressional District 4's bread and butter is agriculture. It
Okay.
takes up entire eastern ward of the state, and then there's a little dip into the Front Range in like Arapahoe County, which is like cities. But the landmass itself and our economic bread and butter is agriculture chiefly. So Ken Buck has sat on agricultural committees and things like that, and I would say people are not satisfied with the way he oftentimes worked on behalf of farmers and ranchers, because really he didn't. So what I can offer the voters in CD4 specifically is my top issue is agriculture and water rights. I understand these deeply as I live here. I'm deeply affected by these things, and I can better represent the people here being brought up on these issues. Second is capitalism. I'm a hardcore radical capitalist. I am unashamed of that word. I know so often many people feel like we need to cover that word up because it's been made out to be terrible. In my view, capitalism is non-government intervention in the market. So whatever we can do to deregulate the economic market is going to create prosperity for residents of CD4 and anywhere else my vote would go in Congress. It would always be to deregulate the government. That brings me to my third issue, which is decentralization of power. So any way that we can decentralize power from the federal government and hand it back to the states or hand it back to the local level and back to the people, that is what I would like to do. That is how I'm always going to vote. I'm always going to vote for agriculture in the best way that it fits the capitalist free market society, and I'm always going to vote to decentralize and deregulate government power.
Okay. So it sounds like what I hear sometimes libertarians say people confuse is they confuse crony capitalism with legitimate capitalism. So I assume that you also agree that you support capitalism, but you're not going to give favors to any corporations over others.
Definitely not. So there's no bailouts in capitalism. You cannot buy my vote. I'm happy in the economic situation in which I live. I do not need any more than I have. Rich is the man who needs nothing. I need absolutely nothing from anyone. So in that makes me an incredibly free agent, and crony capitalists should shake in their boots. And that's what I would say the Republican Party is and has become. And they've really deviated from that free market, non-government interventionist policy of real capitalism. So yeah, no crony fat cats getting fed here. I will do everything I can to starve them.
Sounds good. So since you've been chair of the party, and we talked about what the roles and responsibilities are, what have you learned in that position that you're applying to this race?
I've learned how to get around in political environments. I know how to advance my ideas, but at the same time, I've learned to really speak to people in the language that they will hear. So some people would not like the term capitalism, so I would continually reference the free market. I've learned how to really craft and tailor messaging to be able to advance my ideas, but also I've learned how to disagree with people in a very positive sense, right? I think one of the biggest problems in our hyper-politicized environment is no one knows how to disagree anymore. It's like, oh, if you disagree with me, you're my enemy. But if you disagree with me, that's okay. You're still my friend, and I still am going to take what you've told me. I'm going to think about it, and I may actually find that you're right and change my stance. So I approach this role with an incredibly open mind, and I like the fact that I'm a third party, so I'm definitely a free agent in this environment. I can talk to Democrats. I can talk to Republicans. I can talk to Greens. I've already been endorsed by several Greens and several Marxists, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Simply because I know how to speak to them, and I can recognize that we all see the same problems. We just have different ways of finding solutions for those problems.
Sure.
And so it's been a lot of fun to be able to take the skills that I've learned as being chairwoman and apply that to this congressional race. Now, I also manage a budget for the party. As chair, it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm taking my members' donations and using them incredibly wisely and getting the most bang for our buck. As though I'm anti-taxes, I do recognize the tax system structure exists. So how can I represent my constituents' tax dollars to the best possible way that I can? That's another transferable skill that I can apply to this race. And should I be elected, I know how to take care of and spend dollars wisely. My budget is significantly smaller than the United States budget, but the same idea applies, you know?
Okay. Sounds good. So what's the ballot status for the Colorado Libertarian Party? Are you already on the ballot, or are you continuing to collect signatures?
So here in Colorado historically has had many parties on our ballot since our statehood. We have ballot access through our assembly process, and if you don't want to go through the assembly process, you can choose to collect signatures. So our ballot access is incredibly good. I am on the ballot, 100% secured. I went through our state assembly, and I was able to be nominated by my delegates. So that's it. So I'm on the ballot.
Okay. The state assembly process, I have not heard of that in other states, so it sounds like it's unique. I could be mistaken. Maybe I'm ignorant about it. Can you please explain that more? I'm interested in that.
Yes. So I don't think many other states do their nominations this way, but Colorado does. Even in the major parties, you go to your state assembly. The Libertarian Party is much smaller, so it's a little bit different and actually easier. And the power of the individual is really heightened in our assembly process. Through the Democrat and Republican process, you have to start through your local precincts and work your way up to the state assembly. That's a whole process I'm not super familiar with, but for the Libertarian Party, basically you're nominated on the convention floor. You don't need a certain amount of signatures. You don't need a certain amount of votes to be able to be nominated. Once you're nominated from the floor, the delegates vote on you. And if there is a divide, in let's say two people are running for one district, and it's like 50-50 split, that will go to a primary ballot, and a primary ballot will be mailed out to every Libertarian that's a registered Libertarian in Colorado, and we would have a primary vote. I voted in one primary since I've been a registered Libertarian. It doesn't happen very often, but it can. So once you go through assembly and say you get, the majority of the nomination votes, then you file your paperwork and you're just on the ballot.
Interesting. So, so these legislators are Democrats and Republicans, so they don't have a problem with voting for Libertarians to get on the ballot?
They don't have to vote. Only Libertarians vote in our Libertarian Assembly. So the way our state party operates is if you're a registered Libertarian and you're a sustaining member of the party, you are a delegate. You can come in and register as a delegate through our assembly process. So our assembly process is closed only to Libertarians.
Okay, so assembly, maybe the term assembly is throwing me off because I think assembly, like a state assembly, so I was picturing the state legislators voting for it, but assembly is more like a caucus system, right?
Yes, it is the caucus system, correct.
Okay, and you call it assembly.
Yes, that's the term generally used here in the state.
Okay, I get it, makes sense.
Yeah.
So how are you reaching the voters? What is your campaign strategy?
I'm using social media. I have built really good inroads and connections with the press through the GOP deal. And the press really is looking to me as an up-and-coming rising star here in Colorado.
Well, that's good.
So I have a lot of press courting my attention. So I've got social media. I've got the ear of the press. I live in the northeastern corner of Colorado. We have a lot of generational families. They're all very interconnected. Don't worry, my husband's imported or I'd be related to myself. So I have the power of all of these families and extended families, word of mouth. It's my name, being from here helps in name recognition and things like that. I also have a debate coming up with the Republican and Democrat for the special election. So I'm hoping that after this debate, I'll be included in more debate stages as well, and then going around to different debates throughout the congressional district will help build my name recognition as well. Okay, so some of the debates have already happened? I think this is the first one. Okay. Sounds good. So do you have I'm sorry, I cut you off. I cut you off, go ahead. I've also built a lot of inroads into both the Republicans and Democratic parties as well. So good. Maybe that's a little sneaky, but it's politics and it's not necessarily underhanded. No. So working with county chairs and things like that, the current Republican on the special election ticket is not well liked by Republicans. So the special election, I have the highest odds of being elected. It's a red district. I like to tell them because the current Republican is a former Democrat and there's a Democrat on the ticket. So I like to say, well, I can promise you guys I've never been a registered Democrat. Yeah, there you go. Interesting. So do you have a team helping you out, or are you doing this by yourself primarily? I am primarily doing this by myself. Because I'm so rural and so far away from the rest of my team and other libertarians, I'm basically just doing this all by myself. Okay. Sounds good. So the special election, when is that? The election should take place, I believe, June 25th. Okay, so it's coming up. Yep. So are you, when it starts in June, are you going to change your tactics any, or are you going to keep doing what you're doing? I'm really hitting the ground running on this special election. The cool thing about me being on both ballots is you're going to see my name both times. And I've got second place on the order of the names. So here in Colorado, they draw names and then that determines the order. So the first name will be from the approval voting party. Then will be followed by my name, Hannah Goodman, and then the Democrat and then the Republican. I don't know yet about the November ballot as the candidates haven't been fully cemented yet. They're waiting on primary ballots. So there is the potential that I could be listed high up on that ballot as well. But in any case, it helps with name recognition. You'll see my name on two different ballots for the same congressional district, and that's really good statistically.
Okay. So the special election, whoever wins that, they're going to fill the office until the general election in November, right?
Yes, and then once, I think it's like January 1st is when the trade-off happens.
Okay. So the special election from June to January, whoever wins that will be in office for a while.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. So it does sound great that you have two opportunities. You have the special election and then you have the general election. So that's great. So I guess one or both will go awesome.
Yes, I'm very excited.
So Hannah, how can our audience support you in your campaign?
You can head over to hannahforliberty.com. There I have my Anadot set up, so it's all ready to go for campaign contributions. Any donation is much appreciated. That is the number one way that you can support my campaign, even from out of state.
Okay.
Another way that you can support me is to follow me on Twitter, which is @HannahForLiberty, and social media as well, and you can share me and word of mouth and try and boost me that way as well. But donations, any social media interaction, if you know anyone, if you can get me on any sort of podcast or interview, all of these things really help me out tremendously.
Sure. So you said the website is, I heard the last part, liberty.com. What was the part before that?
Hannah for Liberty.
hannahforliberty.com. Okay, perfect. All right, I can see what I can do about putting those in the show notes so then our audience can visit if it works out for them.
Perfect. I really appreciate that.
Of course. So Hannah, we thank you for coming on the podcast today and talking about your campaign.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. We wish you all the best in both elections and everything else you do in your personal and professional life.
Thank you.
All right. Take care and all the best.
All right.